I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow, and this is At Home in Bloomington, brought to you by Karen Russell, Ruoff Home Mortgage. We profile the people, places, and resources that make Bloomington, Bloomington, and help you live your best life. At Home in Bloomington. Hello and welcome to At Home in Bloomington. I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow, and we are here today with a couple of guests, as well as our lovely sponsor, Miss Karen Russell of Ruoff Home Mortgage. Hello, Karen.
Hey, Deb.
Thanks for joining us again today. And as always, I feel like you're trying to look at my notes.
No, I can't even see. I know we're sitting right next to each other. I cannot see those.
Oh,
my glasses on.
All right, okay. So as most of our listeners know, we try to keep Karen in the dark because it's entertaining.
Yeah.
I like to say there's a good business reason for it, but it's not. It's just mostly because it's entertaining. So you're sitting at our table here in the studio with our two guests, Amber and Christy, and you have no idea what they do.
No, but you thought that I knew one of them.
And apparently you don't.
No.
So
then
but
that
here's
still
what's
draws
crazy.
Nothing for me.
Here's what's crazy, right? That right before the show you were telling me something, a story about a neighbor of yours, and it totally goes with the topic of today's show.
Okay.
So it's a little bit, this is a really important show. It's a volunteer opportunity. It's an organization in town that I want people to understand that it's out there. I'm going to read a story as our introduction because I got a piece of mail from this organization the other day, and the story was in it, and it really made me kind of stop in my tracks and think about what you all do in a different way. So here's the story, and then we'll reveal. Okay. So this was in the letter I received. It said, recently I listened to a close friend as he described growing up in the 1950s and the serious physical abuse and neglect he experienced when there were no government agencies or support groups available to help him. He explained in detail the horrific beatings and unimaginable neglect he experienced almost daily. He felt his best and only option was to run deep into a nearby wood until it was safe to go home, sometimes camping out all night. 3 times he almost died in the hospital due to the abuse. I asked my friend how he possibly survived such an ordeal, and his answer was clear and firm. I had a teacher who was always there to listen and advise. He made sure that I knew he cared about me. I know it's really sad, but I'm hoping that the message of today's show is going to be uplifting, that there are ways that all of us can pull together in our community and help kids that are in similar situations. So I'm going to introduce Amber Schride of CASA.
Okay.
You've heard of CASA,
yes,
right?
I
think
yes.
That's the thing. And that's why I wanted to do this show, because I feel like everybody's heard of CASA, but I'm not sure everybody quite understands what it is that they do. So Amber, you're the Resource Development Coordinator for CASA.
Correct, yeah.
And then we're also joined by Christy Langley, who is a volunteer.
Yes.
And
correct.
the volunteers at CASA are actually called CASAs, right?
They are a CASA advocate. So court-appointed special advocate is what it stands for.
Awesome.
And they're all community volunteers.
Which is just amazing. So I want to talk, just give me the kind of elevator speech of what is CASA about? What do they do?
Sure. So as a CASA volunteer, you advocate for a child that's in an abuse or neglect case within the Monroe County court system. So once a child's been removed from their home by the Department of Child Services, the case then goes before the judge. Then the judge determines that they're what's called a child in need of services, which then means that they get sent to the CASA program. When we have an advocate that's available, that CASA actually gets assigned to that child, and they're the ones that gather information for the judge. They find out what's going on or what's not going on. Are the parents receiving the services and participating and doing the things that they need to do in order to make sure that child can go back home into a safe, permanent, loving environment that's safe and stable for them. So people like Christy are the ones that are going out and talking to family members, teachers, parents, foster parents, therapists, service providers, baseball coaches, anyone that might have some information, as well as the child, that can help them to make good recommendations to the judge within the hearings.
Is this similar to a guardian ad litem program, or is it different than that? I remember, this is going way, way back in college, I had a roommate who was a social worker, and she was involved in the guardian ad litem.
It's very similar. The only difference is that CASAs are not paid.
Okay.
So a guardian ad litem is often an attorney or someone with a legal background or experience that can do very similar things, but they are paid by the court system. And so sometimes they may not look at it as objectively as what the CASAs do.
And I'm guessing, too, that if you're in that situation with somebody being paid by the court system, it is mostly representing the child's legal interests.
Right.
Whereas, again, I go back to the letter that I read, was that making sure that the child, a big part of what CASA does is also making sure the child knows that there is someone out there that cares about them and has an interest in them and is on their side.
Exactly. The CASA is there to really make sure that the child stays at the forefront of the case, that their interest and their well-being is the primary goal that we need to achieve. And one of the ways that, when CASA got started, back really in the early 80s, in Washington, it was started by a judge who thought, we're in these hearings and we're seeing mom, we're seeing dad, we're hearing from their attorneys, but here's this kid in the middle and nobody's talking about what they need or what they want or, what services they may need to be getting. And so that's how CASA got started, to make sure that child was really being paid attention to.
And so it's a nationwide organization.
That's correct, yes.
With local chapters.
Yeah, CASAs are all over the country, and Indiana is actually, I think, the second largest CASA program in the country behind Texas.
Oh, wow.
When it comes to the number of counties that have programs and the participation. We really have a really strong CASA network here in Indiana.
Interesting. I wonder why that is. You have any idea why? Because you think, there's lots of states that are much bigger or more populated than Indiana,
right.
But for some reason someone championed it and really got on board. Interesting. Mm-hmm. So CASA of Monroe County serves obviously just Monroe County, or does it branch out into other counties?
We cover cases that are handled here in Monroe County courts, but that does not mean that necessarily all of the children are in Monroe County.
Okay. They could live in Greene County, perhaps, but the court, for whatever reason, the case is being heard in Monroe.
Right. The case is being heard in Monroe County, but they may be living with grandma in Terre Haute or Evansville. We have CASAs that travel all over the state sometimes to see these children.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what are the age ranges of the children?
To be involved or to have an active case, they're anywhere from birth up to age 18.
Oh, wow. So even little babies.
Yes.
Interesting.
Especially little babies. And we have probably half of our cases are under the age of 5.
So, Christy, can you talk to us a little bit about the types of things that CASA volunteers do?
Yeah, I have been a CASA volunteer for about a year, so relatively a rookie, right? And I only take on one case. I do work full-time and have a child of my own, but I wanted to give back, and I can only handle one at a time. A lot of things that we do, Amber talked about visiting and interviewing people, right? So for instance, my child was 2.5. So there's not a lot of communication that we could have back and forth besides general communication and making sure that I see him and talk to him and that he's in a safe environment. So I would talk with his Head Start teacher. I would talk with his speech therapist, different people who interacted with him one-on-one and weren't really impacted by other people in the room, if you will. So maybe when he wasn't with mom or wasn't with dad, so he had some independent behavior. I also write reports whenever we have court dates. So we have different hearings and you have to write different reports for those hearings. And basically a report includes a summary of everything that you've observed over the time period between hearings and what your recommendation is. So one thing that the judge takes into consideration along with what the attorneys say, especially here in Monroe County, is that CASA's report and recommendation is pretty impactful. For instance, my case actually just closed the week before last, and I wasn't able to attend the hearing because I had a conflict at work. My CASA supervisor, so we're each assigned a supervisor who helps us through the process, she attended for me. And she said that the judge actually read my recommendation out loud because she thought it was so important. So that's kind of gives you a tactile role in that relationship. But so a lot of report writing, visitation, and discussion, attend a lot of family team meetings, etc. So.
And what are the kinds of recommendations that are coming from a CASA volunteer?
Well, there are different recommendations. So there are different kinds of hearings. There are review hearings. There are permanency hearings. There are case closures. And so usually there is an action to be recommended, whether it's increased visitations or whether the child is placed back with one of the parents, whether it's in the best interest for the child to remain with the foster placement. So it's kind of a range depending on the circumstance, but that's kind of an idea of what some of them are.
Is that nerve-wracking to go into court? And
it wasn't for me. So for my job, I've been in court a lot.
Okay.
Not in a family court environment.
Yeah.
It's more for litigation and that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
But so I wasn't that nervous. What is a little bit nerve-wracking is when you're in the court with all the other parties and you can be talking about them, right? And they're sitting two chairs down.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a little nerve-wracking. And then also as a mother, no matter what mistakes you have made, you feel some empathy for the parents. And so that hurts your heart a little bit too. But you look at the child. My child is not in the hearings because he's too young. But you look at them too, and then you're like, okay, that's what I focus on whenever I get the jitters.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking how intimidating it would be to. Deb had. She's a landlord, and she had a hearing in another county, and I went with her just to ride over with her or whatever and sit in there. And I was intimidated just sitting in there, and it had nothing to do with like the welfare of a child or anything. It's just the way the room and that atmosphere and that environment would put me on edge. I'm sure that this is in your ahead. I might be getting ahead of myself.
You're fine. Go ahead.
But what kind of background do you have to, or should you have to become a volunteer?
Right. Anyone can volunteer. We have requirements, but they're not really specific. You have to be 21. Mm-hmm. You have to have some daytime flexibility in your schedule, obviously to go to court and participate in the hearings when they take place. You have to have access to reliable transportation in order to go and visit the child and do the things you need to do. And you have to pass a background check. That's really the extent of what it takes to become a CASA. We provide you with the training. We do a 30-hour training course. We cover every topic imaginable from, writing the actual court reports, interacting with children, interacting with families, working with DCS and the other providers within the community, all kinds of cultural topics and different things like that as well. So we really make sure that you're as prepared as possible, before you take on that case. And talking about being nervous about court, one of the other requirements is that you actually have to go observe court while you're in training. So you really see what it's like. You get a good feeling for everything that's happening within the room just when you go in to observe.
And that's a great point, because I think that's why you and I were nervous that one time going into court. I was actually being called as a witness in a divorce case for a house that I had listed at one point in time. And I don't believe I had ever been called as a witness in court before. And I know the attorney came up to me and she's like, there's nothing you can say that will get yourself in trouble. You're just a witness. But obviously she learned that you kind of have to make sure that, like, as a, same thing goes with the CASA volunteer. You're not on trial, or you're not, because it is nerve wracking, and it's like when you see a police officer. I don't know what that says about me, that I always get nervous when I see a police officer when they're behind me, and I see them in the rearview mirror. Even though I know I'm driving the speed limit, my heart starts racing, and it's like, oh my gosh, I was trained at an early age to be terrified of the law or something. So what is the time commitment? You said I want to talk a little bit about specifics, because if people are listening to this and they're interested in being a volunteer, I want to try and give them some of the answers to their questions. So the training happens, it's 30 hours, so that's a lot of training. So over what period of time? Is that evening training, daytime? Right.
We do two different versions. We do a weeknight training, which is 3 nights a week. You go from about 5:30 to 8:30. And that goes for, I think it's like 3 weeks in a day, basically, is what it breaks down to. We also this year tried weekend trainings. So we do a Friday night from 5:30 to 8:30. You go Saturday and Sunday from 9 to 4. You get a weekend off to kind of process. And then you do another weekend, and then you're finished.
Okay.
And we have some people that love the weekend trainings because they love to just crank it out and get it done. Remember everything.
Yeah.
We have other people that really prefer the weeknights, especially, people that have kids or have other, commitments and things. they like to be able to do those shorter little bursts.
Okay. And how often do you do training sessions?
4 times a year.
Okay. So quarterly.
Yep.
So there's always, if someone's interested in listening to this, because they can be listening to this, anytime, hopefully, even a couple of years from now, there's always a training session coming up in the near future.
It's usually I think we do like February, May, August, and then November, October.
Okay. And then once you are trained, you're assigned a case.
Correct.
Or a couple of cases if your time is...
Well, the next step really after the training is complete is you fill out a preference sheet. And we ask you all the questions. Would you prefer younger kids or older kids? Do you want a sibling group or a single child? How far can you travel?
Do you think the training that you receive can prepare you to answer that survey? Because I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know. I think I would check everything because I don't know what I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does. And Christy maybe can add a little bit too, because some people come into it knowing, okay, I can only commit to one child. That's the best I can do. And then, in a few months, maybe we'll look at another case, or, my next go around, we'll do a little bit more.
I didn't think about that, but the more children you have, even
time.
if it's the same family group, it's still in more time. So I think,
Well, I was just thinking like the age groups, like I don't know, if my heartstrings are already pulling, like I don't know if I could be a CASA for a really young child.
Then probably they'd encourage you to put that on the preference sheet.
Yeah.
Right? So even outside of the CASA program, what are your personal preferences? Yeah. And that's what I used as a guide whenever I filled the sheet out.
We have some amazing CASAs that really don't want to interact with teenagers, or they really have no interest in holding a baby whatsoever. But they do an amazing job at everything else that they do.
Okay. So you fill out your preference sheet, and then you work on getting matched.
Yes, and so every Friday our office sits down and it's our staff meeting. We look at available CASAs and we look at the cases that we have. And we put a lot of time and effort really into trying to match people up as appropriately as possible, both from just our experience and, working with them in training, or if they're a more seasoned volunteer, okay, this is a really bad case, this person would be a great fit, or they're new and maybe we should give them one that's not going to be quite so hard hitting. And we try to match them up as best we can. And then we have them come in and they actually sit down and read the case file. So they take the time and go through it so that they know really what's going on up until the point where we are in the case.
And what's interesting is that the CASA volunteer is allowed to read all the legal documentation, everything that's in the file. And so, that's really important too, because you've got a lot of information in there. I'm sure there's confidentiality, issues and things like that. So you really have to be, I think, diligent and aware of it is a responsibility, but it sounds to me like you all at CASA do everything you can to make it easy for people to take on the responsibility. You're not just being thrown to the wolves and like, here, do the best you can.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Hand is held. You have a mentor available to you at all times, and case managers and things like that.
And you meet, Christy comes in monthly to meet with her case coordinator in the office. And, you can talk a little bit about that, but you sit down and it's a great time to bounce off questions and talk about things.
Yeah, and even when I'm not coming in the office, something, especially being a new CASA over the past year. Now, I had a little bit of a cheat sheet because my husband used to work at DCS. So whenever process things would happen, I would be like, hey, what does this mean?
Right.
What am I supposed to do?
Right.
But I would, Lynn Card is my current CASA case manager, and I would text her or email her, and she'd get back to me within 24 hours. So it was very responsive, and I didn't have to wait for that monthly meeting to happen.
Right.
Awesome. Great. We're going to take a break, and then we come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about what the need is and if there's any misconceptions, because I know I saw something on your webpage of someone who said they didn't originally get involved in CASA because they thought it was a foster program and they weren't interested in fostering kids. So I want to make sure everybody's really clear on what exactly it is and talk a little bit about your funding and that sort of thing. So we will be back in just a few minutes. Stick around. You are at home in Bloomington.
Hi, this is Karen Rastel with Ruoff Home Mortgage. Did you know we are on the cutting edge of technology when it comes to applying for a mortgage? Loan Butler was created with you in mind. It's a fast, convenient, and secure way to apply online for a mortgage loan. It reduces the amount of paperwork and time for you. Save a tree and contact me today at 812-606-6666. 888-888-7653 for more details. Ruoff Home Mortgage is an Indiana corporation licensed by the Indiana Department of Financial Institutions. This is not an offer for extension of credit or a commitment to lend. All loans must satisfy company underwriting guidelines. Equal housing lender. NMLS number 141868.
This is your Real Estate Realist. Practical advice on buying and selling real estate based on my experience closing over 800 home sales. We've all heard the old adage, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. No statement is more accurate than for real estate. We all want the steal of the century or to find a way to circumvent costs associated with buying or selling real estate. But I'm here to break it to you, if it looks too good to be true, it usually is. Here are some examples. Number 1, discount real estate brokerages. Be sure you read the fine print and ask lots of questions. Usually discount brokerages also mean fewer services. Think realistically about if you want to manage your own showings, feedback, and negotiations on the sale of your home, or if you're okay with being limited on the number of homes you can go look at when buying. There is almost always a limitation with discounted brokerage services. Number 2, getting cash back to make renovations on a home. HGTV makes it look super easy to get cash back to make home renovations, but it's not that simple. Some loan types won't allow it at all. Some lenders offer special programs, but at higher interest rates or closing costs. And many require you to use pre-approved contractors. There are options for adding in renovation money to mortgages, but it's not a given or a slam dunk. If you think this is the route you want to go, you'll want to start talking with lenders before you even start looking to find one that offers a program that works for you. And number 3, secret foreclosures. Almost weekly, I get contacted by someone looking for a foreclosure that they saw on a website that has an incomplete address, and to get the complete address, you have to pay a membership fee. Well, there are no secret foreclosures out there. If a bank is foreclosed on a home and taken the home back, it is advertised near and far, loud and clear. They want to sell that home. Secret marketing and making it hard to find the house or the listing is probably the worst marketing plan in the world. These websites are simply too good to be true. Increase your real estate consumer IQ by listening to my Real Real Estate Today podcast, episode 17, to hear more about too good to be true real estate stories. You can find it on iTunes, my YouTube channel, and at www.athomeinbloomington.com.
My name is Donna, and my realtor is Deb Tomorrow. When it comes time to buy or sell a home, she is the obvious choice. Deb is not your average realtor. She stands beside you all the way, before, during, and after your real estate transactions. Deb is passionate about real estate, and it shows. So just do it. Choose Deb. Now back to the show.
Hello and welcome back to At Home in Bloomington. I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow. Before we get back to our guests, Amber and Christy from CASA, we have our Facebook follow segment, and I didn't even think about this before the show, but coincidentally, I'm encouraging people to follow a business in town called Pronounced Skincare, which is located about 2 blocks down the street on North Morton from the CASA office. So you can stop by the CASA office, get more information. Somebody had said on the CASA website when I was reading some volunteer stories that they had stopped by and decided to get involved because you had a sandwich board sign out front on the sidewalk talking about how many kids were in need, and it just tugged at her heartstrings. Said she drove by all the time and was like, all right, I just have to stop and get involved. So stop at CASA and get involved, and then go down the street to our friends at Pronounced Skincare. Karen and I have been in that shop, and it's a really cool concept in terms of skincare. Their theme is DIY or buy. And so it's all organic, handcrafted. You can either buy the products completely made, and there's lotions and soaps and balms and all kinds of stuff, or you can buy the ingredients, pick up a recipe card, and make it yourself. And I just think that that's brilliant. So Jessica runs the shop down there, and the Facebook page for Pronounced Skincare has so much more. You've got recipes and just all kinds of ideas, and it's just really kind of inspiring for a healthier lifestyle. So hopefully we'll have her on as a guest on the show sometime.
Yeah, we went to the ribbon cutting, and I was like, I think I'm a buy person. Like, I'm going to buy this.
Not a DIY.
I don't think I could. I mean, I know, but she's got those great recipe cards that you could follow it step by step. But I'm pretty sure I would still mess something up. So I'm better off just buying it in the nice package.
Well, what's really cool when you walk in the shop, too, is that there's sort of this kitchen on one end where you can see them actually making the product. They make it right there, and they ship it all over the world. So check them out, Pronounced Skincare. Okay, back to CASA. So you've gone down to Pronounced. You've gotten your little skincare. Come back to CASA. Christy, why did you become a CASA? You kind of mentioned briefly in the introduction that you wanted to give back, but
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that.
I do have one child, and I was finished after that one. But I feel like I have more time and resources to give to children. My husband's in the social work industry, so he's exposed, and by proxy, I'm exposed to a lot of that. And we talked about fostering, we talked about adoption, and it just didn't feel right. And so I searched and searched. Found CASA. I was a little bit intimidated by the training commitment. As I talked about, I do work full time and I'm involved in some other stuff. And my situation changed where I had more time. And so I said, what the heck? And I did it. And I'm very glad because that piece that was missing, I feel like this fills it very well and gives me that interaction, not just with the child and the family, but the entire system. I've made relationships at DCS, I've made relationships at CASA, in the court system, and that helps me understand the scenarios a little bit more. So.
And how many active CASA volunteers are there?
Last we were around 142.
Okay, that's a pretty big number.
We still have children on our wait list.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is the need?
We're going to see over 700 kids assigned to the CASA program in 2018, which compared to 2016, we were around 620. So every year we're steadily climbing and climbing and climbing, it seems. There's a variety of reasons, of course, opioids, drug addiction, all of those lead to more cases, being assigned to us. But I believe the last I looked, we have still somewhere around 80 kids or so that are a part of our wait list, which means they're waiting for an active CASA volunteer to be available. And
their case is moving forward without them necessarily having ample representation or a voice.
They are still an active case that's happening, and that case is moving at its own timeline, whether CASA is involved or not. We are super lucky here in Monroe County with IU to have access to some awesome social work interns. They come in and they help us to monitor our wait list. They go to all the hearings for those wait list cases. They attend as many of the meetings as they possibly can. Like Christy talked about, child and family team meetings. They participate in those. They take notes, and then they come back and report to our staff how they feel that the case is going, if it needs to be bumped up on the list. And assign a CASA sooner rather than later. And then this year, we were able to really kick off a new volunteer program at CASA, and it's called the Child Visit Monitor Program. This was done as a pilot project through the state of Indiana. We got a special grant to put this on, and last year we were kind of really forming it and getting it set up and getting it started, and now this year it's really been taking hold, and we're really seeing the effects of it. So as a child visit monitor, your only responsibility is to go visit that child once a month.
Okay.
You see them.
How long is that visit typically?
I would say you probably could spend about an hour.
Okay.
It's not a huge time commitment. You may have to travel, obviously, to where they're placed, but you're not doing all of the meetings and the hearings and all of the other activities that are involved with the case. Then once you make that visit, you go home, you jump online, and we have about a 10 or 12 question form that you have to fill out. And it's just giving us a little update. Was the home clean when you went in? Are they getting the medications that they're supposed to be on? Are they going to school? Those just general things to let us know kind of the well-being of the child at that time. So it's a way for us to really triage the wait list.
So then does that information go to a case manager who shares that with the court, or it goes in their file?
We have a supervisor that is kind of monitoring the whole program itself. Okay. And she is the one then that comes back into the staff meeting and reports on anything that comes from those visit monitors as well.
So if a red flag goes up, then you all know to prioritize or get some more people involved.
Exactly. Because the child visit monitor is not actually assigned to the case through the court system. Mm-hmm. They're just really to help us monitor it and to watch what's going on. So they don't actually have access to all of the court files and all of the documents, those kinds of things.
So they don't need as extensive training,
right?
Because
they're not a legal party to the case, just as a visit monitor. They do go through some training. Mm-hmm. We do make sure that they are prepared and ready before they go forth with it. And we're starting to find with some of them that they want to do more once
Sure.
they get started. And
Right.
so it's a good way for people to kind of get their feet wet too, with the program.
And do the parents, like especially in that situation when it's not assigned by court? So a CASA volunteer, if you're assigned a case, the court's assigning saying we would like CASA involved in this case.
You sign an oath with and everything, yeah.
But the child visit so the parents don't necessarily have a say. They're not asking, hey, we want a CASA involved in this case. They're just being told that that's going to be part of the process.
Exactly.
With the child visit monitor, is that the same thing? I guess my question is, like, you're going into this person's home. Do they want you there, or do sometimes they not want you there?
We send out information to them, and think that you're also going to foster placements or family placements. You're not necessarily going into the parents.
Yeah.
In those situations. So we do actually contact them ahead of time and say, be aware this is, another opportunity for us to help make sure that, the child is being well advocated for, et cetera. And this person will be contacting you.
Okay. And one of the things we were talking about on break, because Karen and I have obviously watched way too much Law and Order to think like, right, there's what it is. To think that, there's always going to be contentious relationships, that many times the parents are wanting to have a relationship with their child. And so they're willing to and happy to involve CASA because it's only helping them get back to their ultimate goal of being reunited with their child. That what you had said, and it's true, because I can think of, some cases like this. If the parent is angry or doesn't want to be involved, then they're not involved. They don't show up in court.
Exactly. They're not going to be there. Christy can attest to this as well, but when you get to that point in the case where the parents are showing up for court and, all of the things are happening and the recommendations are being made, they want to be there. They want to get their life back on track, get their family back together, and move on past this. If they didn't want that, they wouldn't be there.
Right. Because no one can force you really to parent a child.
Right.
And I guess that's that's a good thing and a bad thing. But no one can force you. If you're not there, you're not there. So I think that's important to remember as well. So Child Visit Monitor is an easy way to get started and help, and you've got probably an endless supply of needs for that as well as for the CASAs.
We do. We definitely do. The Visit Monitor, we're probably looking at around 5 hours a week or a month, of volunteer time.
Okay.
Versus anywhere from 8 to 15, 16 for being a full-blown CASA. Chrissy, how much did you?
Mine was about 10 to 15 hours a month. Now, I will say my case was relatively mild. One of the parents did everything they needed to do and didn't need much, I don't want to say supervision because that sounds patronizing, but
accountability.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't have to check in every day. So mine was a little bit more passive than maybe a case that's a little bit more severe.
Right. And depending on where you jump into it at too. We always try to tell people when you first get started, it's going to be more intense because you're going to have a lot of reading to do. You're going to have a lot of contacts to make. There's going to be a lot of catching up because if the case normally lasts 1 to 2 years, you may jump in at the 6 month, 9 month, or year mark potentially.
And you have to catch up on everything that's happened.
To backtrack and follow up on.
So is that usually 1 to 2 years is usually about how long CASA will be involved with a child?
We have had some cases go way longer than that, but that's typically the average.
Is there any involvement with the child after the case?
We try to encourage our volunteers and actually really tell them to separate yourself from the case and from the child once it has closed.
Yeah.
We want the child to be able to move on and forget all about us being involved in their lives and this bad time that they were involved in. We want them to move forward with the good stuff.
Yeah. Sounds like they're, as a volunteer, it certainly can, test some of your emotional IQ, what's it called? EQ, because you have to be able to kind of maintain some boundaries, and which I think are all healthy skills to learn and develop.
Oh, definitely,
for all of us. But if you are wear your heart on your sleeve and get way too involved, you may want to look at other ways to help CASA. So speaking of which, where does your funding come from?
CASA is I guess I should start by saying that every county program is a little bit different. So some county programs are through the court system. Some of them are standalone nonprofits. So they get funding in various ways. We're really fortunate that about half of our funding comes from state and federal government, and then also our wonderful county government as well. So we get a lot of funding and support that way. But then the rest of it is all fundraising.
So you have events throughout the year, all
Right.
kinds of, there's always dine and donates going on and things like
There's
that,
always
right?
a dine and donate. We have a great gala in the fall. We do a fundraising breakfast in the spring every year. And then we love to encourage our local businesses to sponsor us and to support us, annually throughout the year. And you can also do, just general donations. We have a great group of people that do a recurring gift every month for us.
Oh, nice.
And, that's awesome because for me, I don't realize that $10 just went out of my checking account. It always goes out of my checking account. And I don't miss it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the year, it makes a difference to us.
Well, the other thing I wanted to make sure that we talk about is Jordy. And we said over the break, I said, well, I want to talk about Jordy. And Karen's like, who's Jordy? And I was like, you'll see. So this is something else in addition to all the other services that you're offering that is relatively new, right?
Yes. Jordy is 4, but he's been with us for 2 years now.
Jordy's a dog, Karen.
I thought it was a dog, but I thought, what if I said that on air and it really was a child or something? I don't know.
So tell us about Jordy. I know one of the staff members over there, Tia Arthur, right, is sort of in charge of Jordy. But I love, and I want to meet Jordy so bad. So tell us about Jordy.
I should have brought him this morning with me. I could have. He was actually napping whenever I left. But so Jordy is a 4-year-old golden retriever, and Jordy was trained by the Indiana Canine Assistant Network out of Indianapolis, and they train dogs to do all kinds of things. So they train service dogs for people that are disabled, maybe diabetic alert dogs, PTSD. They work with a lot of Army and military veterans. So all of these dogs are trained to work with a variety of different people and to serve them. And then those dogs actually, after about a year, they determine what they feel is their strong suits and try to match them up with a need. And we decided to apply for a service dog. He's actually a facility dog. And so his job is to be available to kids when they have to go to court.
Isn't that great?
God. I love it. I know. I was thinking, is it like a support dog? So when the kids are coming into the office, but the dog can actually go
into the courtroom and sits on the stand with them, lays his head in their lap, right?
Yes.
Just so something for them to hold.
Jordy's amazing. He's a really sweet dog. And he has a funny story.
Tell the story because I love the story. I've been telling everyone I run into. I'm like, have you heard about Jordy? He's a failure, but
he's a failure. He started with the I think it was the Oregon Guide Dogs for the Blind, and the lady that raised him, she's amazing. First off, she has done this for such a long time. And Jordy's dad was actually in the Amazon Prime commercials.
Oh wow!
So he has a
pedigree,
illustrious acting career behind him as well. So. But, he was being trained to be a guide dog, and they discovered pretty quickly that Jordy would not pee on concrete. He would not go to the bathroom on concrete, and as a guide dog, you have to be able to go. He has to be able to go anywhere.
Right, because the blind person wouldn't necessarily know where the nearest crafts is, right?
I would be Jordy because I'm like, no, that's not acceptable. I can't just go right here. I need to find a nice spot, mark it out. Yeah.
And he would not go on concrete. He had to go somewhere else. And so he failed guide dog school. And what's really cool about these dogs and about these programs is that, they're all interconnected throughout the country. And so, the woman in Oregon, she contacted Indianapolis and said, we have this great dog. He's already been through, however many months of training, but he can't do this one thing. Can you take him on? And so they fly him in, and he comes to Indianapolis, gets trained at the Indiana Women's Prison, works with some amazing volunteers throughout their organization, and then fortunately enough got placed with CASA. And so, he goes to court. He can be in the courtroom and provide support and comfort and relief for these
and
kids.
He won't pee on the floor because
he doesn't like the concrete. And it's funny, he actually hates the floors.
I bet he does. They're shiny and
makes him a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But he can do other things too. He hangs out in the lobby because within the court system, if you are 14 or older, you can actually go in and testify and be a part of the case. But if you're younger, you're not actually allowed into the courtroom. But you have to think, like, foster parents, they're both coming, and, you know, maybe they don't have someone that can stay with the child while the hearing is going on. So the kids often are in the waiting room and they're around. So when we know that they're going to be there, Jordy can go over and he plays ball, or he will just lay with them on the floor, and they can brush him and comb him and talk to him and spend time with him that way. He goes to Susie's place quite often too, and can be there to, you know, help kids before they have to go in for a forensic interview, something that's really super scary for them as well, and talk to them. And, you know, he can spend time with them there. He's even going to, I think, Middle Way House and Shalom Center too, occasionally, to work with some adults. Yeah. And he's gone out of county even now. He's getting contacted to go, like, travel to
Jordy's
cases.
famous.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we have some pictures of Jordy up on Facebook. When we,
He has his own Facebook page.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, we're gonna have to follow him for sure. And he gives tickles too, right?
He does. He can tickle you.
So if you say tickle, he pokes his nose in your belly.
Yep.
That is so
Isn't
cute.
the cutest thing?
Sometimes it's a little aggressive. Sometimes he gets really into it and jabs you. But these
That's
facility
amazing.
dogs are awesome. The courthouse facility dog program is a national program. And slowly it's gaining speed. And I think Jordy was maybe the second courthouse dog in Indiana. I may be misspeaking, but I know he was pretty early. And now there are other court programs within Indiana that are adding dogs to their services. We learned a lot about the program, you know, just by hearing about it from other CASA programs that are doing it too. So
yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, well, best way for people to find out more, get in touch.
Sure. You can go to monroecountycasa.org.
Okay.
And check us out there. We're on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram now.
All those good things.
We're all over social media, but you can also call the office and speak with myself or another person in the office as well. It's 812-333-CASA. And occasionally watch our social media and sign up for our email list, because we do events. Christy, did you ever go to one of our coffees?
No.
No.
Kind of shameful look on my face.
Well, we do events occasionally to where we'll have either a coffee, or we've done cupcakes as well, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Where people that are interested in volunteering or just have questions.
Yeah.
You know, you can come in. People like Christy will be there to answer questions and talk about what it's like volunteering.
Awesome. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for both of you for what you're doing for the community. And I think that's it's an important, there's a need, and it, you know, does nothing but strengthen the community. But thank you for joining us today too. And hopefully
Thanks for having us.
People will think about it. Think about if this is something, you know, I know that you have a lot of retarees as well as a lot of people that, you know, do work full time. So I encourage everyone to, if they think that it's something their heart is calling them to do, to, you know, talk with Amber or anyone at CASA and figure out a way to make it work. And you know,
one of the biggest things for us is ways people learn is just about word of mouth.
Yeah.
You know, so even if you don't feel like you're the right fit, maybe this is something that
you know someone who would be a good fit.
Yeah, exactly.
Share this show. That would be a good way, right? Put the show out there and say, hey, listen to this and see if you want to get involved, because it's a great thing for community. Thank you so much again. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
And we will be back with another show at home in Bloomington.
Got a show idea? I'd love to hear it. And be sure to contact me for all your real estate needs and questions too. You can email me at deb@realrealestatetoday.com and follow me on Facebook at Deb Tomorrow Realtor. To contact Karen Rastel for all your mortgage needs, call 812-606-7653 or log on to ruoff.com and go to the Bloomington Center. Thanks to all the Bloomington people who make production of At Home in Bloomington possible. Special thanks to superstar producer Rachel D. Gregorio, digital guru Cynthia Hogan at Monster Digital Marketing for website design and hosting, and video genius Wes Lasher in the production house for engineering the show.